Okay, folks, it's your buddy Mike Messier, and today is National Barely Legal ECW Day for all the wrestling fans out there. For non-pro wrestling fans, this story may or may not interest you, but essentially what ECW, Extreme Championship Wrestling, and before that it was called Eastern Championship Wrestling, it was a third company of professional wrestling. I believe its first year in business was 1992 as Eastern Championship Wrestling. I think it was 92. And then by 94, it was getting some notice in the local or the wrestling trade magazines. And by 95, it was getting some syndicated television. And I think it was not until 2000 that they, or 99, I guess, they had syndicated on cable on the Nashville network, TNN. But in the process of that story was a special day. Barely Legal hit the promised land, the dance, as Paul Heyman famously called it, on April 13th, 1997, when this famous photo that I took, Sabu versus Taz, some would say that was the main event, although there was also a world title match between Raven and the winner of a triangle match, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But I actually attended this event. I was actually there, where I took this photo and some other photos, and maybe I'll do another video, or I'll put on my YouTube page on the, I'll put the pictures up somehow if I figure that out. So what was it like? Well, I'll give you some background. I had been going to ECW shows since late 96, I guess, in Revere, Massachusetts, at the Greyhound Park. Yes, I was there when New Jack Slice opened Eric Kulas. And Burlington, Mass, and Webster, Mass, and Waltham, Mass. And I actually had a press pass, an ECW press pass. Now, for this Barely Legal show, it was outside of my district, so to speak, of New England, so I just bought a ticket like a normal human being. And in order to get there, I was in Rhode Island at the time. I flew from Rhode Island to Virginia, and a friend of mine named Colin and I drove from Virginia to Philly, to the original ECW arena, and back in one night, because I think my friend had work or college or something the next day, something like that. And saw this fucking show. And my friend, for his part, was a big Nitro and Raw fan, but he had not seen ECW at all. So this was a new experience for him altogether, to go from 0 to 60 with ECW and see some of these wrestlers. And I remember asking him what his favorite match was afterwards, and he said the Japanese match, which was the Michinoku Pro 6-man. So now could I go through every match in memory? I just say that when we got there, you know, I remember seeing Raven with like a big bag, like a big, you know, travel bag with his leather jacket going in there, and the fans were all excited. I remember seeing that sometimes in the wrestling magazines or on TVs, you'd see like, kind of like the Rob Zombie ECW fan, like this one particular fan that had like a Rob Zombie look. And I think he was there, and I think he even gave me the Too Sweet thing or something. And I think there was another, I don't think it was the same guy, but a different wrestling fan, a different ECW fan, who actually had an ECW tattoo on his arm, like the word ECW or the initials. So the fans were pretty into it. And I remember it was a shtick where I think unless you paid for the front row, every other chair or seat in there was just bleachers at the old ECW arena. That was the one and only time I went to the ECW arena. And it was literally just bleachers. And a lot of fans fought to be on the, you know, in the view of the hard cam, as they knew where they were going when we got in. First thing I would say is that it was pretty late in the game for us to get in there, meaning pretty close to showtime. And when they finally opened the door, there was literally a fresh coat of paint getting into the ECW arena, which was kind of nice. You know, it was nice that they tried to clean up this joint for us. I found a little chair over here. Maybe I could sit in it. Well, in any event, so we get in there. There was actually, I actually did get on camera very briefly, there's a moment in the Taz Sabu match where I think Taz is about to suplex Sabu, and you can see me wearing a Taz orange shirt, oddly enough, kind of between the knees of Taz, like in the background in the audience. Not that I'm literally in the ring between his knees, but I'm in the audience. What else? There were 2 dark matches on this show that I don't think were ever taped at all. And I want to say that Louis Spicoli, who was, I want to say he was still a babyface, but like about to turn heel. But I think Louis was on the dark show, and he beat somebody pretty quickly, and I don't remember who. And JT Storm came back. JT Storm, who was kind of like the original, if you remember the Italian guys, a full-blooded Italian, was his name JT Storm? African-American gentleman who really was a great talent, great wrestler. And a lot of times you think of the FBI now, you think of Tracy Smothers or Little Guido or Tony Mamaluke, Tommy Rich. But I believe the guy that started it was his name JT Storm. I'm really getting confused. I'm gonna sit down. There we go. So what else on this wonderful show? You know, every year I think about talking about Barely Legal and my fun having been there, but I forget. This year I did it, and I even wore the shirt. I'm drawing a blank on the guy's name. Sorry. But anyway, he was there, and he came out for a tag team match, and it was some type of FBI match, and they won. And then, you know, in short order, the pay-per-view started. And, God, the matches, you know, the first thing that you saw on that pay-per-view was the Dudleys. And the Dudleys, believe it or not, I mean, for people that talk about the Dudleys and all the celebrated tag team title reigns they had, this was their first title reign, their first ECW title reign. So if you think about the 16 World Championships, Tag Team Championships that Bubba Ray and Devon had, they entered this Barely Legal ECW pay-per-view really, you know, in title reign number 1, which would end at this show. It would end at the hand of the Eliminators. And at the time, if you were going to ask a wrestling fan or an ECW fan, like, hey, who's going to be an all-time great tag team from this show, they would probably say the Eliminators, because the Eliminators, John Cronus and Perry Saturn. Cronus especially was, you know, somewhere between 280 and 300, and Perry was a good 245 pounds, you know, solid muscle Perry Saturn. But these guys had big-time wrestling maneuvers and flips, and they were really kind of ahead of their time. And but they were big guys too. I mean, they were full heavyweights. Unfortunately, something happened with the Eliminators. Perry Saturn went over to WCW, and Cronus stayed in ECW. That's where he felt at home. I actually worked with John Cronus in a movie a few years after that called Wrestling Son, which you can watch on the Mike Messier YouTube channel. But my point is simply that the Eliminators never really, I don't want to say do they reach their potential? In a sense they did, but in a sense they were cut short a little bit. So I always think about that. Not that I always think about it all the time, like, oh, I'm always thinking about the Eliminators not reaching their potential. No, I think about other things. However, when I think about the Eliminators, as many fans do, you think about it. They were also almost the Pro Wrestling Illustrated Tag Team of the Year, I think, for 1995 or 96 or 97.